Hi, this is C Holstad, poet, writer, author, um, jack of many trades over the years, and doing another video right now. And while I started doing this recently in support of my new book of poems, Surviving Immortality Again, C Holstad, published by Alpha Buddha Press, released October 15th this year, available on Amazon in paperback, 132 pages. It's really, really nice production quality, and very happy with it. $12.99, 90 poems packed into 132 pages. Considering I've written a lot of long poems over the years, there are some shorter ones in here too. But I'm not going to be reading from this book today. I am reading a couple of older poems from a legendary defunct magazine, journal. One of my many interests is in retaining the memory and legacy of a lot of literary journals and others that have gone their way, are defunct now, but shouldn't be forgotten. And on my website, hankrules2011.com, I have a section for literary links and resources and defunct journals. And the links, I know there are a lot of resources out there. I know there's new pages, there's just everything, but I have 200 curated, fairly diverse magazines and journals. Most are literary, some are not. There are a couple of tech ones and other things, but I try to keep them rotated, and I try to keep them pretty fresh. But and additionally, I try and keep the resources pretty diverse and interesting. But I have a list of probably 60 or 70 defunct journals. I think with cover shots for most of them and links to where many were, or some may still be archived. But this is one, and I'm not 100% certain on the status of all of them. If I call them defunct, it's because I haven't been able to locate them in a long time. Pretty much all of these published me a long time ago, been around a long time. I got my first national credits back in the mid-'80s. Got my first 2 poetry collections published in 1991. And I've always had an affinity for Bukowski and the Beats. Yes, I know they're not the same, but there is a loose association for a number of people. And I got to be published with, I got to meet and got to know a number of people, including Bukowski while he was still alive, and a number of the Beats, many of whom I've been published with. And those people are also on another section of my website called Scott's famous writers or whatnot, because quite a few people have been privileged enough to be published with me. Now it's the other way around. I've been published with a lot of very successful, famous people, some very well-known legends, some known more in the poetry or small press communities or others, and some not necessarily known for being authors, but who actually did do some writing, and who I appeared with in some publications. I've mentioned a couple before. Yoko Ono was one. I appeared in a long shot with her, both for her art and her writing. And quite a few. Leonard Cohen. He was a fantastic poet before he ever went into, what he later became best known for. But a lot of the beats, I was privileged enough to get to know some, become friends with some, hang out with a few, and get published with many others. I even published a few myself in some of my former lives. So I have appeared in a number of beat-centric, beat-specific magazines and journals and publications over the years, some of which would be well known, some of which are, sort of niche because the beats, and as famous and infamous as they are and were, it's still many niche publications that publish them. One, not super famous, but pretty well known in the literary community, I think, for a long time, was Out of Mind. And this is volume 5, number 17 from winter 1996. I had a few things published in this, and you can see the names of some of the contributors. I'm not going to make you read them from that, but they would include, at this point, anyone from Antler of City Lights fame. His first book from City Lights Factory was legendary. Poet laureate of Milwaukee. He was considered by many to be Ginsberg's heir. I published him back in like 1991, but he's here. And Steve Richmond and Arthur Winfield Knight, R.I.P. Alan Catlin, great guy. He is the editor of Misfit and a fantastic writer, prolific writer and poet. And Keith Dodson from Long Beach, Michael Esbrook, R.I.P. I appeared with a lot of these people over the years. Courtney Moe. A lot of the, I think, early contributors when Out of Mind was getting going included more of the original beats like Ginsberg and whatnot. And as many of these would go on, you would find sort of second generation beats or related. Eddie Winans, if you're familiar with him. Bill Shields, before he was had his reputation damaged by his own, I guess, actions or whatnot. But let's see. There's just a lot of publications out there that the Kerouac connection. A lot of people don't know about the Kerouac connection. It's because it was published in Scotland and is sadly defunct. And this is one that I appeared in 1992. I may read from it from some other time. And this includes a lot of stuff. At this point, issue number 24. Similar, early on, may have had a lot of original beats. In this issue, at this point, a lot of stuff about the beats. Gerald Nicosia, of course, has stuff in here. Did Nicosia die? God, R.I.P. When you get to be my age, it's hard to keep track. There are so many. But a lot of great publications that emphasize the beats, specialize the beats. My stuff in here is not particularly beat. I do have a lot of stuff published over the years that was referred to in print. And the Hawaii Review said that I had a Whitman-esque / Ferlinghetti-esque street feel to my work a long time ago. But I just want to let people know about Out of Mind. It was a great publication. You can find it on my website in that on the page for literary links and defunct publications. And it's great to look up if you have interests in older journals or in the Beats or any number of reasons. I'm going to read a couple of poems I had in this. This was the early 90s, and this was not untypical for a lot of my stuff back then. I've gone through a lot of changes over the years and written a lot of genres, a lot of different styles. I do a lot more experimental stuff in recent years, but I did a lot of different things. And these would have been fairly representative of the kind of things I would have been writing in the early 90s. And I'm going to read two poems. One is called Bargain, and the other is called Knoxville Night Court Blues. Had discussion with someone a couple days ago, another writer, about first person, about how readers or audiences will assume that everything you write or read or whatever in first person has to be about you and absolutely true. And I understand why that might be an assumption, but that's for me anyway, and for her too. I think for a lot of people, not necessarily a safe assumption always. Sure, often things will be autobiographical to a certain extent, maybe just a little, maybe exaggerated, because he was a huge influence on me, and people talked about similarities to the first similarities noted in print actually were in Finland in a Finnish publication back around 1990 or 91. And I have a translation of that on my website. But I'm just going to go ahead because this video is getting way too long as it is, and dive right in. Bargain. When I moved to Phoenix a few years ago, I had a hard time getting going. And after getting kicked out of the place I had been staying, which was nice, it's hot there. It's not a fun place to be homeless. I somehow found myself this awesome deal sharing a deceptive looking home. Turned out it didn't have AC. The only place in Phoenix didn't have freaking AC. With a lonely large girl. Well, turned out that this $75 a month, if I did the yard work house, was a slum in training. And I soon found myself dodging giant bugs, mad dogs, and flying bullets. Eventually, I found myself dodging the lonely proprietress as well, who found in me a seemingly willing listener to whom she could turn at all hours of the day, whether I was in the shower or in bed. I invariably found myself waking up in the morning and spitting the sewer roaches out of my mouth frantically, swatting at jumping tarantulas and stomping on black widows. I'm proud of the fact that I lasted 6 months in this environment before I moved downtown to Gangville, Phoenix, secure in the knowledge I would actually be safer. I have other poems about downtown Phoenix. Knoxville Night Court Blues. Any naturally fictitious creative writing events described in this poem would have occurred in theory before moving to Phoenix. Knoxville Night Court Blues. I walked into Night Court and said, oh shit. There were at least 75 people there waiting to go before the judge. I looked around, spotted my lawyer. He motioned me over and said, look, we'll get you in and out quicker than shit. I'll try to get you off on probation, that is, if the cop will agree to it. So I nodded, watched as he made his way back to the judge's chambers, and I wouldn't have been so nervous if it hadn't been for the fact that this was the third time that year in front of the judge, this very judge. Moments later, the bailiff came in and announced the judge, and my lawyer came sidling in the side entrance, and I held my breath as they took the docket up and announced Holstad. And I came forward meekly, as my lawyer had suggested, head down. And it happened quickly, while the cop who I had called a goddamn redneck asshole, as he arrested me 3 months earlier, glared at me. And my lawyer did it 1 year unsupervised probation plus court costs, and I gleefully pulled the old checkbook out, knowing this would be my last time yet again. Knoxville Night Court Blues. I think that's in one of my old books. I can't remember which one. I'm very sorry. I'm old. They're old. I'm focusing on the new book. Again, this is my first book of poems out in a long darn time. Many years. I've had a lot of stuff published between the last one and this. Been a lot of anthologies. I have helped edit and produce some academic books. I've had a lot of stuff appear in textbooks, literary criticism that would interest very few people. There's been a lot of anthologies this year, 2025, and supposed to be in 1 or 2 more, even though we're approaching Halloween now. And who knows what the future holds. As I've said in the past, I passed my expiration date, as numerous doctors and specialists and others had predicted quite a while ago, and I'm still hanging on somehow. The poems and the overall tone in Surviving Immortality Again are meant to convey sort of a general concept of, oh, shit. Never gonna die, am I? Immortal. Let you know a little secret there. It's a fear of mine. Never wanted to be immortal. Rather resented the concept. But the concerns I encountered when writing that new book was that not immortal in the sense of the traditional Western views of the afterlife and other locations, but more Promethean, as in here, decaying as anyone would, physically, mentally, with time, but unable to exit to any other dimension, paradigm, what have you. It's, if it sounds like it's out of a movie, well, or sci-fi, I was influenced by Philip K. Dick quite a bit, and Bill Burroughs, and many, many others. A lot of influences. Babbling now, it's a bad habit. I've tried working on that on some recent shorter videos, and I will resume that once again after I finish this overly long one. And for those who have watched and made it all the way through, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it or found it engaging, or whatever your reaction. I would welcome any comments, likes, follows, subscriptions, shares. This is a fairly new venture for me, videos. I've done a lot of readings and speakings and whatnot a long time ago, so I'm very rusty, and this is just sort of off the cuff, but I'm enjoying it. Getting some good feedback, so feel free to leave some feedback or to find me somewhere. And if you have suggestions, or if you want to hear or see other things, stories of me and Ingrid's talking about, her son's first forthcoming book, because, yeah, I have those stories. I have stories about people who no one will know, but they're still good stories. And I have a lot of things that I can read and would love to read. And I'd be happy to talk about a lot of other things as well. I've had many diverse interests over my life, and I can usually talk a little bit about a lot of things, a lot about a few things, more than most people want to hear, sadly. But thanks so much, and I'll catch you on the next one. It's Friday. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.